Gone
Would
Baby
you
Gone.
care to pronounce the title of that movie correctly?
Which movie?
Spotlight.
Spotlight? Is that what you're asking me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Spotlight?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Spotlight Kid? Yeah, how's that? Pretty good? Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to 1999, the podcast. I am John Brooks.
And I'm Julia Sermons.
And today is an episode, it's not a revisit episode because we actually haven't done this one before, but it's rather the most glaring omission from our initial 18, the universally regarded as like one of the best, if not the best movie of 1999 by pretty much everybody I know, finishing in 69th place, sandwiched between two previous entries, Girl Interrupted at 70th and Mystery Men at 68th, taking in just $60 million worldwide on a $90 million budget. Starring Russell Crowe, Al Pacino, Christopher Plummer, Diane Venora, who also appeared in our last movie, True Crime, the hardest working man of 1999, Philip Baker Hall, Lindsay Krause, Debbie Mazar, Colm Fiore, Gina Gershon, Michael Gambon, Rip Torn, Lynn Thigpen, Haley Eisenberg, and my friend Andrew Tobolowsky's uncle, the greatest character actor alive, Stephen Tobolowsky. Directed by Michael Mann and adapted from the 1996 Vanity Fair article, The Man Who Knew Too Much by Marie Brenner. With a screenplay from Eric Roth and Michael Mann, with a score by Peter Bork and Dead Can Dance's Lisa Gerrard, who, by the way, would also co-score Russell Crowe's next big movie, Gladiator, for which he actually won the Oscar, and with cinematography by frequent Mann collaborator, the great Dante Spinotti. Today, we are talking at long last about The Insider.
You go public and 30 million people hear what you gotta say. Nothing, I mean nothing, will ever be the same again.
Now, the work we did here is confidential, not for public scrutiny, any more than our one's family matters. We're very serious about protecting our interests.
He's got something to say, he wants to say it, I want it on 60 Minutes.
Maybe for the audience, it's just voyeurism, something to do on a Sunday night, and maybe it won't change a thing. And people like myself and my family are left hung out to dry, used up, alone.
What does this guy have to say
Now, don't be paranoid, Jed.
that threatens these people?
That isn't cigarettes are bad for you.
Who is this?
They have no right to hide behind a corporate agreement. He can talk, we can air it.
The worst kind of an organized smear campaign against a whistleblower.
Shoplifting, failing to pay child support.
They can paint everything with that brush.
What are you going to do now? You're going to finesse me, lawyer me some
Mike.
more? Try Mr. Wallace.
If we aired this segment,
I was told, don't talk. Mind my own business.
we could be a grave risk.
We're doing this with or without you, Lowell.
Are you a businessman or are you a newsman? He's only the key witness in the biggest public health reform issue in history. Does he go on television and tell the truth? Yes. Is it newsworthy? Yes. Are we gonna air it? Of course not. Why? Because he's not telling the truth? No, because he is telling the truth. And the more truth he tells, the worse it gets.
You manipulated me into this.
I fought for you and I still fight.
The public needs to know.
Jeffrey!
And you wish you hadn't come forward?
Dr. Wagon's deposition will be part of this record.
You wish you hadn't blown the whistle?
Do I think it's worth it?
I told the truth. It's valid and true and provable.
These people, that's not the point whether you tell the truth or not.
So, Julia, what is The Insider about?
Jeffrey Wigand, played by Russell Crowe, is an executive at the tobacco company Brown and Williamson. He is fired and signs a confidentiality agreement. Lowell Bergman, played by Al Pacino, is a producer for the CBS news show 60 Minutes. You remember CBS, the Tiffany Network, the gold standard for investigative journalism.
Too soon.
Bergman receives a tranche of documents indicating that big tobacco companies have been lying about cigarettes being addictive. He needs help interpreting the documents, and he approaches Wygand. Wygand agrees to help, but won't violate the terms of his confidentiality agreement. At first, the prickly Wygand is suspicious of Bergman's motives, but Bergman eventually gains Wygand's trust. Bergman takes great pride in protecting his sources, and he helps Wygand out with legal cover, a security detail, and emotional support. Wygand still pays a high price for his whistleblowing. He loses his comfortable lifestyle. He gets death threats, and his wife leaves him. Nevertheless, Wygand agrees to do the interview for 60 minutes. He reveals that tobacco companies are indeed adding chemicals to cigarettes to make the nicotine more addictive. However, CBS decides they're not going to air the interview. They're afraid they might get sued. Plus, Brown and Williamson have torpedoed Wygand's credibility by dredging up all the dirty laundry from his past. Bergman, however, is not going to stand for this bullshit. He goes behind his colleagues' backs and urges other journalists to run stories proving that Brown and Williamson have either lied about or exaggerated Wygand's character defects. CBS airs the interview. It's a bombshell, and Wygand experiences some moral redemption. Bergman, totally disillusioned, quits CBS and goes to work in the wilds of public television.
The Insider was perhaps the biggest Oscar loser of 1999, getting wiped out by the gargantuan beast that was American Beauty after earning nominations for director, actor for Crowe, screenplay, cinematography, editing, sound, and Best Picture, and losing them all, as was the case with the Golden Globes, for which it was nominated in the picture, actor, director, screenplay, and score categories. As I mentioned, Crowe would go on to win the ultimate example of the two-film Oscar in 2000 for Gladiator, which was widely seen as a makeup call in addition to an award for his performance in that movie. But it remains one of the best reviewed movies of the year, with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 96, a Metacritic score of 85 with a universal acclaim rating, and it found itself on countless year-end best-of lists. That includes a number of reviews with a score of 100 on Metacritic, including Rolling Stone's Peter Travers, who wrote, quote, "Other films, notably All the President's Men," which we've talked about before, Network, and Quiz Show have explored the politics of compromise, but Mann turns a moral issue into riveting suspense. "What got broken here doesn't go back together," says Bergman, who quit 60 Minutes even after CBS agrees to air the Wygand interview at a later date. Accused Mann of overlength bombast, dramatic license, his film is still mandatory viewing. With its dynamite performances, strafing wit, and dramatic provocation, The Insider offers Mann at his best. Blood up, unsanitized, and unbowed. In the Chicago Reader, Lisa Allspector wrote, quote, "Based on Marie Brenner's 1996 Vanity Fair article, The Man Who Knew Too Much, this 1999 docudrama exposes big tobacco with low-key fervor. It resists obvious opportunities to sensationalize the dilemmas of a former head of R&D who had to decide what to do with what he knew, and a 60 Minutes producer who found he didn't necessarily have the support of the network, almost cagily creating understated drama from high-stakes reality. The grandiose visual style of director Michael Mann, whose intensive expressionism also motivates the ending, and the use of sound and music, enhances the material. This may be the only issue movie I've ever seen that's also abstract art." Anyway, joining us to discuss The Insider, a movie about investigative journalism, is award-winning investigative journalism. Is it investigative or investigative? What do you prefer? Investigative?
Investigative.
Investigative journalist. Lindsay Beyerstein. Lindsay, welcome to 1999 the podcast.
Great to be here.
So let me ask you first, how much like your life was this movie?
I would say not very much in terms of the scale and grandeur of what 60 Minutes was in 1999.
Yeah.
That, this was sort of the peak of TV news, where they have essentially unlimited budgets, unlimited reach, as much power as any media property could ever have in a world before the press has been delegitimized like it has now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's a lot that feels really real about the dynamic between reporter and source, and the kind of mutual chaste seduction that goes on, and the interplay and the psychological dynamics between the two that felt very, very authentic to me.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you've done, like some of the things that you have investigated famously as an investigative journalist?
Sure. A big project that I did a couple of years ago was investigating a native reservation called Fort Peck in farthest northeast part of Montana, and they had this new law that was criminalizing women who used drugs during pregnancy, and these women were actually ending up in the county jail. And we investigated, where this law came from, and went on this long, involved saga to actually track down women who were in jail, and then actually go and interview one in the tribal jail, which was a really intense experience.
Mm-hmm.
And done stuff. I did a documentary a few years ago called Care and Chaos, which was about anti-abortion extremists, and we ended up going to a clinic and various clinics around the country, and finding out how the staff were dealing with these protesters that were choking their business and terrifying their patients and bombarding them with sound, like some kind of Noriega bunker scenario.
My God. So this was your first time watching this movie. I know that. Julia, I know that you, well, first of all, like your favorite subgenre here, movies about journalists. You'd seen it right before, and you're a Michael Mann fan, right?
Fan. Yes, I have.
Fan.
I just really adore this movie, and I think it's really would definitely be on my top 5 or maybe 3 of 99 of American movies. And I do love journalism movies. I love a good investigation, put the dots together of any kind, but I do like journalism movies a lot. And I think this is such a I don't know. I never get tired of watching it. I actually watched it more than once to prepare for this podcast recording. And I think it's just it's so well, it feels very, very loose in a lot of ways. Like it has that kind of, all that, like all the President's Men kind of feeling scenes where they're, in the room having the meeting, sort of like what do we have, what else do we need to get in order to run with the story, and then like the more stylistic details of like how many pictures of Mounties on horses are we going to have, stuff like that feels very kind of loose and real, but also like some of the reviews said, Mann is such a great stylist, and the kind of looseness of it with the construction of it is just so well put together, which I think maybe makes it my favorite Mann film.
Oh, okay.
We can get into it. It's okay.
Okay,
I have notes. I have receipts. But I do think what is so, I really do love a kind of like, maybe I love this too much. I really love a kind of a man must have a code type of film, and the way I was interested to hear you say about being impressed by the way it depicts the relationship between journalist and source, because I feel like the way that's the heart of the movie, right? And that just and those are the performances of the movie, and just the way that is kind of a seduction, and it is kind of a romance, maybe on a level even, is so central to the movie and is so compelling.
I love how the same psychological techniques come into play again and again. One of my guilty pleasures is watching interrogation documentaries, like with the cop and the suspect. And you notice that like a lot of the same dynamics are also at play there. And just seeing how they reassert themselves in different interactions in terms of just people trying to get other people to do what they want, and the problems they have between each other that, you can see in romantic relationships and source journalist relationships and interrogations. It's like the recurrence is fascinating. Like in the scene where there's this exchange where Weigand is talking about how he's trying to justify himself, right? He's saying, this all I was doing was taking care of my family. There was nothing wrong with that, right? And then journalist just Pacino just mirrors that back to him, and he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with that, and then just trails off and lets him keep going as he then proceeds to explain exactly what was wrong with what he just did, or what he did for working for the tobacco company. And it's like, it's like serve and return, essentially, that that Bergman validates him and gives him that sort of boost to go on and complete the thought that he wasn't going to be able to complete otherwise.
I love the scene between them in the Japanese restaurant.
Yeah.
And you almost have that. It's like one of Mann's experiments in form, when you also almost have that like Ozu tatami mat type style shots, right, of the two of them, and the whole. This is sort of them coming to agree upon the fact that he is going to be the source, and he, Weigand, I think very wisely says, like, I'm just a commodity. And like, is this actually going to end up making any difference, or is this going to end up entertaining people for 60 minutes? And he kind of pushes back on Pacino and being like, well, what are you, like, Mr. Berkeley, Mr. Radical Journalist, like, what are you doing here at CBS? And Bergman is also justifying himself, right, saying, I reach a larger audience here, I do good work. And it's they're kind of both laying their vulnerabilities out on the table a little bit, in a way that maybe that's less realistic. But there is this moment there in that scene where Bergman is also saying, like, kind of like, don't throw this back on me. Like, this is your decision. Like, don't make this about me, when, like, you have to decide if you can live with what you've done. But at the same time, right, Bergman is being very honest about the fact that, like, yeah, this could be a flash in the pan, and then, like, you have to go back to, like, picking up the pieces of your life and deciding how you're going to live after this one moment where you're the hero briefly,
And I thought it was interesting in that sort of chaste romance dynamic. They're there having this dinner at this nice restaurant, and he's like, you don't really care about me, I don't matter to you. And
yeah,
Bergman's like, has to get you. No, you really are important. You're everything to me. You must, I can't make you stay. I can't make you do this, but you're a very important person that I really care about.
Yeah. Lindsay, have you ever had like that contentious a relationship with a source? I mean, is that like ring true, or is that, do you think, overly dramatized interpretation of what sort of a journalist source relationship might end up looking like?
I think it's, I wouldn't say it's overly dramatized, because I think that's what it would look like when you're playing for that level of stakes, right?
Right.
It didn't seem false relative to what was happening in the story to me.
Okay.
But yeah, on a lower level, you get that a lot. That there are people, that these sources that are, kind of your friends, kind of not your friends, people that, some people that, want to completely monopolize your time and never want to stop talking to some people that you have to pursue and cajole and reassure constantly. It felt very real in that respect. It just kind of, it's one of the things I think is most interesting about the job, is that each interaction is new, and a big part of it is just dealing with the person as you find them, and what their needs are, what their interests are, what their emotional space is like, and trying to meet them and reassure them and make them feel like you're a safe person to talk to.
Right.
And I really like the emphasis on defending your sources, and how important that is, that it's, a deep moral thing for Bergman, which it really is, making yourself the safe person to talk to, and really being willing to stand behind that.
Yeah. And I like the nuanced way that it, looks at corporate media and some of the compromises that have to be made, when you decide to either work for, a place with a ton of resources and a ton of reach, or to maintain your, like, utmost integrity as a, left-wing radical reporter, as he once was, without making it sort of comical. And I think even like the evil of the tobacco industry here is not maniacally comically evil, right? Which I like. I like the restraint. I don't typically associate Mann with restraint. And this, I think, is one of his more restrained movies. I think maybe because he's venturing into a territory that he isn't necessarily sort of instinctively adept at, right? He's much more sort of the high crime sort of cops and robbersy type of guy most of the time. But I think that dynamic really worked for me. But I wonder, like, for both of you, I found I was trying to kind of remember what the general sort of public awareness was of the evil of the tobacco industry in the late 1990s. And whether any of this was like necessarily all that surprising in terms of what it was revealing as like a major movie in 1999. But certainly to me, what resonated far more now, and only because of we live in the future, right, is that the CBS News 60 Minutes stuff, right, really has a very different feel in light of current events. And I feel that I was far more emotionally impacted by that side of the story because of what's happening right now than maybe I'm not sure that it ever really felt much about that when I watched it in the past. But I mean, Lindsay, you having watched it for the first time now, I just wonder like where you felt the majority of kind of the dramatic kind of tension was coming from for you.
Yeah, I actually really I agree that there was a lot of nostalgia in terms of what CBS used to be compared to what it is now. That you've got Barry Weiss in charge of CBS News now, who's saying that she wants to get rid of the Standards and Practices Department because she doesn't see the point of them and they have too much power.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of thinking, well, just wait till you get sued. I mean, this movie also illustrates why, from the corporate perspective, you have to have standards and practices,
right?
Because some other company will end up owning your network if you just abandon them,
right? Or even if you pursue them, because you know what I mean. Like even if you are. Yeah. If you do things the right way, like one of the things that's really interesting about the sort of central conflict with CBS is that it's not that they're afraid of, like they're afraid of looking irresponsible, right? Like that's sort of why how they're spinning the way that they're going to broadcast the Weigand interview. It's not ostensibly about being worried what the tobacco industry is going to do to them. It's the sense of like, if we fuck this up, right, if we're not careful about this, if we're not overly precautious about it, then we are going to ruin the network, and they're going to be owned by some random corporation or whatever it is that they say.
But they're also talking about the concept of tortious interference and the legal idea that they could be sued into oblivion because they facilitated him violating his confidentiality agreement.
Right.
And the concept there, right, is like the more accurate you are, the greater your legal liability.
That's right. That's what I was getting at. Yeah. Right. That's sort of like that's sort of the underlying irony of what's happening there. What Julie? What about you? Like, did the movie hit differently in terms of like where you felt the sort of human drama was coming from this time?
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was some national news magazine show, but I had forgotten it was CBS in 60
Right,
minutes.
Me too. Yeah.
I watched it. It's like, oh god, I have a stomach ache. We haven't really discussed how much going back and watching movies from now 26 years ago is just like looking at things that were bad and then just feeling like, oh my god, it's so much worse now. But this is definitely one that comes to mind here, and I think it shows some of the, I mean, maybe rot is too strong of a word, but it shows like some of the problems that go into this type of journalism, right? And the idea that like you have this huge corporate machine behind you, which like is ostensibly to protect you and defend you, but it's not in this case saying like this is too dangerous, we're not going through with it. And like Mike Wallace, who's like Mr. Investigative journalism, like one of the old guard, of the last of the great newsmen, right? Like he doesn't come across looking so great here, right? Because he's willing to take the half measures and do the compromise where they talk about Wigan but don't reveal his face, or don't actually show the interview. And that's shown as like pretty much a totally like ego driven decision, right? The idea that he's like in the twilight of his career and thinking about how he's going to be remembered, like as a media personality, right? And the idea that they don't, he doesn't want to be remembered to go out on a note of scandal or embarrassment, and or be sent to work in, I think he says, the wilds of National Public
Radio. Yeah.
Right. Which is like, like there's ego and a lot of other factors attached to it rather than just being the best journalist you can be. And it shows like there is something inherent in this system that like was already there, even like given the whole like just total mudslide of shit that has gotten us from where we are in this movie to where we are today in CBS with CBS in particular. But yeah, so I love that line at the end, like what gets broken here doesn't go back together, just right, because it's like, yeah, this was a stepping stone to something pretty bad in terms of this type of news journalism.
And then it got so much worse because you don't have those resources. Like the good thing that they show, like they show the yin and the yang, the plus and the minus of working for this huge corporation, where on the one hand, they've got the resources to just fly wherever they want, fly those sources wherever they want, take the source and his wife out for this fancy dinner, like all this evidence of an unlimited budget. You can just go to Montana on the drop of a hat. That, to say nothing of all the legal maneuvering and the security teams and all the stuff that they're able to do because they've got this huge corporation behind them. That's the positive. But then the negative is the bureaucratic constraints. And now we've got the worst of all worlds, where even 60 Minutes, I suspect, and certainly not most news, doesn't have nearly the budget that they used to, doesn't have nearly the resources to give. And standards are eroding and censorship is increasing. And it just makes you feel how we've lost at both ends.
Yeah. And when, the president can be mad that you edited a certain interview and so you owe him, it's like, it's just like, there are so many moments in this movie where I was like, I wish it were only this bad. You know what I mean? Like I was, I wish we could go back to when these were the only concerns, and that these were the only compromises being made. It really is a wild movie to watch in the future.
Like if you'd asked us in the good old days of 24 years ago whether it would even be possible that a U.S. president would extort CBS, saying, "Give me $16 million over a frivolous lawsuit so that your merger with Skydance can go through." Like,
Jesus Christ.
We would not have believed it. It would not even have been comprehensible to us.
No, and it's also, I mean, even like, in the sort of movie from the past element of it, even the opening scene, just like in a post 9/11 world, just feels really like it just plays differently now as well. Like it just feels a lot more sort of prescient, and like the way that this movie sort of weirdly kind of predicted and wrote the future is it's just something I haven't really appreciated in sort of past viewings, and I hope that it doesn't become more relevant as time goes on. I hope I don't like find it even more depressing in 10 years, but
we won't realize how good we had it.
The halcyon days of 2025 America.
Very wise.
God forbid.
We still got to live indoors and report news.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Can we talk a little bit about the performances of this? I mean, like, I know that Wallace was not thrilled with the way he's portrayed. I think Plummer is incredible in the role anyway. I will say, like, so a couple things out front. You can go ahead and debate this all you want. I think this is not my favorite Mann movie, Julia, but it might actually be my favorite Al Pacino performance in like any movie ever. And I love Russell Crowe, and he was such a, like, especially in his prime, like such an incredible performer and actor and presence. And this performance just never ceases to like be jaw dropping. And, he lost the Oscar to Kevin fucking Spacey because it was Kevin fucking Spacey. I know. Yeah. Shaking your head is the right thing to do here, Lindsay. And a lot of people say that, the Gladiator Best Actor award was a makeup call. I think that's underselling Gladiator, because I think he is remarkable in that movie, as much as he is here. It's also worth noting that he shot both of those movies within a year of each other, and like the difference in physique is just jaw-dropping, that he was able to do that. But one of the things that Ridley Scott said about Crowe winning the Best Actor award for Gladiator was, someone asked him if he thought he deserved it, and Ridley Scott was like, yes. And the interviewer was like, why? And he goes, well, just tell me the other person who could play Maximus. Like, name the actor. And he's like, drew a blank, and he's like, and that's exactly why, because there is nobody like Russell Crowe, and that movie just isn't that movie without him. So yeah, anyway, like, I think he deserved it for this movie. I do believe that in part the 2000 Oscar was in some ways a makeup call for him being snubbed in this movie. I don't think there's a single weak performance in this movie, but yeah, go ahead. What did you guys think in terms of like standout and where these all kind of rank?
I love Pacino's performance. I mean, it was a bit scenery chewing at times, but it was,
well, it's Pacino.
It was compelling. Yeah, I mean, what do you expect? But I thought it was very good. I liked Russell Crowe. I did not like Wygand's wife. I thought she was kind of over the top.
Oh yeah,
Southern Belle.
She was also in True Crime. I mentioned this, and she is, every time she was on screen, I kept thinking she was somebody else.
Was it Jessica Lange?
Jessica Lange the whole time, right? Jessica Lange. I'm like, do they just not get Jessica Lange and just dress her up as Jessica Lange? Because like she looks like Jessica Lange the entire time, right?
Yeah, that was my problem with the performance, was that it was like bad Jessica Lange.
It was so weird. It's so weird. She looks just like Jessica Lange for like half that movie, and yeah, it's really disorienting. But no, I agree. I think she's a bit too melodramatic and doesn't quite fit the role, but not like in a way that sinks the movie. It's not bad. It just doesn't.
I would just say the accent feels overdone and like belongs in a different movie.
Yeah,
it's like he's from the South too, notionally, isn't he?
Yeah,
but she's just got this terror.
Yes, yeah, and he's got a very like subtly weird accent too going on in the movie, but it works for me because it feels. He sticks with it, and it feels like.
I didn't even notice his accent, but I just sort of felt like she felt like a caricature, and he felt like a real person.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I mean, maybe it was also that it was a thankless role rather than her performance.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to kind of tell. But
I was gonna point that out, is that as much as I love Michael Mann movies, the female girlfriend roles, wife and girlfriend roles, are often somewhat thankless parts. Penelope Cruz and Ferrari being maybe the big exception to that. So they're not, but Venora is in Heat as well, right?
Yes.
In Heat? Yeah. I think she does she's much better role, much better performance in Heat than she does here.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, she strikes me as an actor who is sort of as good as the material that she's given, and yeah, there's just not a lot to work with here, and it just sort of is a meandering and kind of. I mean, the whole point of her existence really is to like divorce Russell Crowe, right? I mean, that's sort of where the vast majority of the drama from that character comes from. So, Julia, what do you think of both Pacino and Crowe?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pacino is well into the. I'm having a little trouble with best Pacino performance though, John. I have to.
I wouldn't. I'm not surprised you are. Like, so what I will say is that it is, to me, the most restrained and sort of focused that I've seen. I love Pacino, and I think all of his performances are like awesome, and right. I think he's an incredible actor. I also think that he tends to both use and also kind of give in to his worst instincts sometimes as an actor, right? And like the scenery chewing thing, right? As Lindsay said, I think is like that's obviously a trait of Pacino's. Here, I just felt everything was incredibly, like, he's just on exactly the right pitch all the time. I think he really lives in this character, and it's really hard for me to see Pacino in any role like disappear into a role, and he disappears into this role, and I'm not used to that from Pacino. And like that, to me, is why I never thought that this was my favorite performance of his before I rewatched it this time around. But now, sort of having seen his whole career, like, this really stands out to me as, I think, just his most, I don't know, just whole and just like perfectly attuned performance that I've ever really seen him do.
Okay. All right, you got me intrigued. I don't know if I can take away Dog Day Afternoon, but I think it's, you make a very good point that it is a very, like, this is not, he has sort of tipped over into this point of his career into the more scenery chewing phase, but this is not Heat, right?
No.
Like this is like, he is capable of dialing it back. Like this is he's doing a lot less scenery chewing here than he had done in Heat. And I think that those impulses do work well for the kind of heroic dimensions of the character, and that he's very impassioned and, like you said, like, really takes a certain kind of like masculine maybe pride in his relationship with his sources.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying before, like, I love in journalism movies those little scenes around the table where it's like, okay, well, what are we working with? What do we have? Can we do this? What if we did that? And I feel like in those scenes, you're right, he is quite natural, and he is quite you see his kind of and I don't mean this in a negative way, but you see his canniness at work, and him just trying to figure out how to make this all work together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, once the movie takes a turn and it seems like he's not going to get like, it seems like the story may get tanked, and his just total sort of righteous indignation at the being sold out this way, that feels very real, and that feels where that kind of intensity is really warranted and well used. And then I think kind of at the, like, I love the last bit of it where it's just sort of him stalking through the city streets looking extremely pissed off, and
yeah.
Like that entire 20 minutes of the movie or however long it is, like, and him just like determined to.
The splashing around in the surf was a little silly.
Yeah. His whole kind of like home life situation was a little it makes me think of like a Manhunter a little bit, actually, where like the beach is his
I kept thinking about Manhunter too, yeah. And I think that's just one of the things that Mann just likes as a place of, someone in an existential crisis of some kind. Like, Mann just likes to
reconnecting with the earth,
throw him on the beach, right? I mean, he did it by Miami Vice, right? So
where he can stomp around angrily in the breakers.
Yeah, but Crowe, I think, is just phenomenal here. Like this guy, like whistleblowers do kind of tend to be these people who are a little disgruntled or have a little bit of an axe to grind or something like that, and like this is a far inferior movie, but in the Spielberg movie, The Post, when the Pentagon Papers get leaked, like Bob Odenkirk's character, I forget who he is at the newspaper, but he's like, oh, I know who did this. This is that Ellsberg asshole. Because it's just like, there's like a type of person who's going to be doing this. And I think like Crowe gives us a little bit of him being this kind of like prickly, perhaps a little bit self-righteous type of person, while also being a person who, like, what is it that he says? It's like, I thought of myself as a man of science, someone who's really disillusioned. And I think just he's able to bring out all those notes so well and so subtly, and just like, he's also a bit of a wounded animal, in the sense of like he's prey in this very real sense, and like he just the stuff he can do with his eyes, just the way Mann's camera will just capture his eyes moving, back and forth a little bit. Just like there's so much great subtlety in the performance, while also being, like a bit of a blowhard and a bit of a very scared person and a bit of a a truth teller in an uncomfortable way. And I think I mean, just take any scene that he's in and like watch the way Michael Mann follows his eyes, and it's just incredible. The whole story is there. And we can talk about the Kevin fucking Spacey of it all, but like I really go back and forth. Like it's so stupid. Like just when you think you're out of the Oscars, they pull you back in. But like if I had to pick 1999, if I had to pick this Russell Crowe over Farnsworth in The Straight Story, like, ask me different days of the week, I would pick a different one. Like these are just that peerless of a performance.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, the other thing to sort of back up my Pacino comment there is like he didn't get any award recognition for this at all.
Really?
It's just sort of, he's almost an afterthought, and he really is. I mean, like the star of the movie. I think he has more screen time than Crowe does, and it really is sort of the core of this movie. But of course, Crowe was sort of the buzzed about star at the time. This is like LA Confidential. It's just a couple years earlier, and he really is the sort of one of the actors du jour in Hollywood. So I think they're really amplifying that performance. But yeah, like Pacino is completely overlooked for his performance. And I think that's one of the reasons why, again, it still kind of stands out to me, because I go back to it and I see it and I'm like, how did people not see how great this is? Is it because he's not entering into a weird tirade at some point where he like loses his mind and screams at everybody? Because like, is that what it takes for Pacino to get an Academy Award nomination? But
Did Plummer get any? Did Plummer get any recognition for?
Yeah, he got, I can't remember what for, but I know he got a Best Supporting Actor nomination for something, maybe a Golden Globe, I can't remember. And like among sort of critic circles and that sort of thing, there are a bunch of awards that the film got. But yeah, of the majors, it was all Russell Crowe, and like deservedly so. If I suppose if you're going to pick one of the two for the performance, like I would go with Crowe as well. But it is kind of surprising that I guess people think that Pacino doesn't need any more Oscar nominations. No, but it never seemed to stop them with Jack Nicholson. So who the fuck knows what was going on there? Philip Baker Hall, by the way, he is. It's pretty astonishing to me that if you were to ask me what the top 5 movies for me of 1999 were that it's very possible that 4 of them have Philip Baker Hall in them. Like, what a year he was having. So he's in this, he's in Magnolia, he's in The Talented Mr. Ripley, and he's in Cradle Will Rock, right? Like all in one year.
Wow.
Pretty magnificent, and like he was one of my favorite character actors as well. I was always thrilled whenever he showed up in a movie. But yeah, like great character actors in this too. I mean, some of the best in these very minor roles. Rip Torn shows up for 5 seconds, and like it's a flooded cast, but it never feels like it's sort of being stunty in that way, right? It feels like it's creating a real sort of world that feels lived in and all that sort of thing. So
Could I just shout out some people in
yeah
the movie?
Yeah, for sure.
Michael Gambon is
Michael Gambon. Oh my god, yes. Jesus
the
Christ.
exact, and there's that one
So
scene where
good.
he's just like completely genteel,
So
but
good.
like completely menacing, and this is like, I know what you're up to, and I will take away your daughter's health insurance if you don't fall into line. Great little scene there. Also Debbie Mazar. I love Debbie Mazar.
Oh yeah, she's great too. Yes. Yeah.
In her she's kind of just sort of always in the background in all the CBS scenes, wonderful little part for her. And who was the other one person I wanted to point out? Bruce McGill as the attorney in the civil case in Mississippi, who's taking
Right. Yes.
against
Yeah.
deposition. Like, love a good righteous, drawly Southern attorney reclaiming his time.
Yeah.
That was great. Those are some of my favorites. But yeah, so we're talking about this as my favorite Mann film.
Well, so I will definitely say that one of those things that people like to do on the internet sometime is like, name a director who had like the best 3 consecutive movies, right, ever. And I think like if I'm gonna do that, it's hard for me to really think that you can get much better than the 3 movies that Mann made in the 90s, with Last of the Mohicans and then Heat and then The Insider, right? And like I definitely think those 3 movies are put together like just an incredible canon, right? Like that if those are the only 3 movies that he ever made, I think I would still think of him as like one of my favorite filmmakers ever. So I definitely like put this in high regard, right, in terms of Michael Mann's oeuvre. But yeah, tell me why you think it's the best.
I guess I think it's just, I mean, there's certainly a certain personal degree of preference in terms of subject matter and stuff that comes into play. But I mean, like I'm a huge fan of his. I second everything you just said about it. And like that run of movies, they're so different. Like Last of the Mohicans is just like, let's just make the most gorgeous, old-fashioned, adventure epic. And then Heat is, Heat, which is amazing. And then there's this, and like just the amount of the way he can work in such 3 different films while remaining kind of true to himself as a great stylist, I think is testament to stuff. I mean, I love Manhunter, love Collateral. Ferrari I really enjoyed as well. But for me, like, because this is not so much about violence and about these huge violent set pieces, like there's something about the subtlety of his craft that you see much more clearly, and in just these like in the way he does these very small things, like or not necessarily small, but the way that Wygand is shooting is at the putting green, or I don't know what you call it, the place where you just putt and putt and putt.
Driving range.
Driving range, thank you.
That's the
Uh,
extent of my golf knowledge, by the way. I've exhausted everything I know
and
about
like,
golf.
it's just this huge shot and all the balls are just flying and
Yeah,
flying and
yeah.
flying, and
Yeah.
he realizes that he's being watched.
Yeah.
Um, and like there are just scenes where like from far overhead where you see just Wygant and Bergman talking to each other. Uh, in this kind of way of like, we have to be careful, we might be being followed type thing, but they're just these beautiful shots. And yeah, and the way he can put these little kinetic moments together, I just feel like it shows his style in such a way that is like less of what we think of as like the flashy kind of man look, or the way he deals with action and violence that is so so masterful, and really it really shows off his technique and his ability to take those impulses and make them work for a much different type of film. And like you were talking at the beginning, the opening scene where Bergman is being taken, blindfolded to go meet the sheikh from Hezbollah to try and
Yeah.
get this interview, and like that feels very like a more traditional man film, but like that's
Yeah.
all in there as well.
Yep.
So I think it's a way that through subtlety he can show off his skills to kind of more effect, in a sense.
So like what I said about Al Pacino, except with Michael Mann.
Yes, we agree.
Which is why they work so well together, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So like in Heat, everything is both of their more sort of base instincts, right? Accelerated to the nth degree, and it works great. And here it's the opposite, and it works great. So maybe it's a good match. Lindsay, do you have any thoughts on Michael Mann as a filmmaker?
I actually don't. I don't know his work super well, but I will say I just wanted to comment on how much I loved the opening sequence from this movie, and I thought the editing was amazing. Just the rhythm of it, and cutting back the ambiguity of what that sort of pulsating tennis ball like thing is, and then you suddenly realize it's a blindfold, and it's interspersed with this beautiful rhythm with these shots of Tehran, and then him coming in, and then the final almost sight gag where you think he's been kidnapped, but he gets face to face with the sheik, and you think it's going to be some kind of confrontation or torture or something. And he's like, "Would you like coffee?" He's like, "Yeah, I'd love some coffee." Well, this clearly can't be that. And the comedy of that, which is the timing, was beautiful. I loved every part of that.
Yeah, and that's also, I mean, I think that's quintessential Mann as well. These sort of like moments of almost absurd levity within incredibly intense, right, sequences or moments. There's a lot of that in Collateral. There's of course the very famous diner scene in Heat, right? It's like that sort of writ large. It's like a very literal version of that, where the movie just literally stops, right, so that like Pacino and De Niro can get together at a diner and like have coffee together and talk about their careers as like a cop and a criminal. And it's almost like self-parody of what Mann often does, that of course like was also at the heart of Miami Vice, which was at once a kind of campy, over the top show, and then also like a gritty crime drama, right? Sort of living in both those worlds at once. One of the things that to me I think is a theme of Mann's work that I thought was really interestingly deployed here is he's got a lot of like anti-capitalist commentary in a lot of his movies, or at least anti-power or anti sort of concentration of wealth, right? I think that shows in a whole bunch of his work. And what I liked here is, without sort of bludgeoning you over the head with it, the sort of duality of Bergman and the compromise that he has to make to his integrity, right, to work at 60 Minutes because of the benefits of it, and then that sort of like, do I want to go independent or not? But like that, if you want to reach the peak of that career, that's where you're going to work. That's where it's going to be. You're going to be in some kind of corporate newsroom. But then I thought that was really interestingly juxtaposed with the fact that as a scientist, right, the best you can do is go work as a scientist for a tobacco company. And that's sort of him at his height. And then he has to also sacrifice that to go do the other thing you can do as a scientist, which is go be a school teacher, right? And like there's very little in between, and sort of like, you know, really sort of accentuating that they're both dealing with that same sort of devil's bargain of capitalism, with very little sort of space for someone who is both hyper talented and also, you know, morally uncorruptible, right, happening at the same time. And I just, without sort of making it blatantly obvious, I just think it's a really well crafted sort of mirror, right, that's going on there, while maintaining the film's subtlety. And I also say this as someone who, you know, left the corporate world to go work as a school teacher. So like I relate, and I also know how much money I don't get paid. Right. So, but yeah, I found that to be really, I didn't really notice that as much in prior viewings, but I found that to be a really like poignant element of these two characters.
Yeah, I hadn't thought too much about that either, but it's interesting to like the idea of like teaching involves a certain amount of optimism, right? That like there's something very very kind of sad and final in the movie about, you know, like doesn't get put back together, but the idea that like maybe through teaching you're planting the seeds for something better, for a better generation of people to avoid your mistakes or what have you,
as opposed to like literally finding ways to poison them, but like more better, right?
Yeah.
Which is like what his previous job was, right? And yeah, and like a lesser movie, I think would have amplified that distinction, right, in a much more sort of obvious and sort of moralizing way. But yeah, I think that's what's sort of so great about Mann, is that he is like weirdly a director with a very sort of high concept visions, who is very, very good at like nuance and subtlety. And it's just a weird magic that guy has that definitely does play here. Yeah, I don't know, Julia, that it's like not my favorite Mann movie, but I haven't been quite like, I'm not quite there. I still teeter between like this and Collateral and Manhunter and Heat and Last of the Mohicans, and like I'm not really quite sure where I would land if I had to like only have one Michael Mann movie in the world. But probably one of those four, or maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say. Both of you, I also want to know, like, aside from the performance of the wife character, whose name I can't even remember, right? That's like how kind of non-entity that she is. Anything that did not work for you that you were like, oh, this is bad, I don't like this? Because I got one, but I will save it if there's anything you guys.
I felt it was too long.
Yeah.
That it could have been, 20 minutes shorter, let's say, and I think it would have been a more powerful and engaging film if it had been just a bit tighter.
I think 10 minutes. Like, I think it's too long. I agree, but I think it's too long by just a tiny little bit. That there's something that gets kind of like the elastic gets a little bit loose right towards the end somehow. But yeah, I definitely think that is a fair criticism. Julia, what about you?
Oh, now you got me thinking about the length. I actually felt like it, like for the amount of time, for 2 hours 40 minutes, right? I remember it feeling pretty tight to me. But you would have had, for you, John, at least you would have had less at the end, like less of deranged Al Pacino stomping the rainy city streets.
Maybe less beach. I don't know. Like, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some stuff that I don't think is like, I don't know exactly what I would cut. I don't know, Lindsay, if you have a sense of like what you would sacrifice here. I'm not exactly sure what I would cut and where. But I just think that by the time it gets to the end, it has gotten to a place where some of the dramatic tension that holds it together sort of masterfully throughout most of the movie just feels like it's waning. And it just sort of feels like an issue of being possibly a bit too overstuffed.
Yeah, I felt like just certain things just took too long, like the whole contretemps with him and the news manager from the Wall Street Journal that involved meeting in the bar and sort of having the phone call and then meeting in the bar and then the bar scene with the conversation. And then there's a bit more time at the end, but they're not really even talking. It doesn't really seem to add anything to advancing the story or even the atmosphere. Really, it's like this scene could have been 30 seconds shorter and it would have been better.
Yeah, gotcha.
And there's so many scenes like that where I just feel like it just went on a little, each scene went on a little bit longer than it should have. It wasn't that scene for scene, any of the elements were obviously extraneous, but just many of the exchanges could have been tighter, in my view.
Yeah, I also though think like sort of on the flip side of that, one of the things that I love about Mann is that he of any director, I think, is one of the best at making the boring bits interesting. Which is like, there's a lot of stuff here, and I was very conscious of it as I was watching it this time, where I was like, if this was any other director filming this scene, it'd be really boring. Like there's like a lot of people talking, and somehow Michael Mann is very good at making those sort of expository elements of just people talking like really gripping and really, really well paced. And that is a talent of a director, because you could take that same script and have a lesser director do it, and it would be snooze inducing, right? It'd be really kind of hard to follow. And I don't know what it is that he's doing, but somehow, even when you get to the boring stuff in Michael Mann movies, I still find that really captivating. So like, this is a very talky movie. I mean, it's not like, there's no explosions, except for, occasional Al Pacino outbursts, but like, yeah, there's no
there isn't even a gunshot. There's just a bullet in the mailbox.
There is a gun. He owns a gun. He points it at somebody at one point, but that's it. That's as close as we get to a big Michael Mann shootout. But yeah, which is quite impressive. So to me, and I say this as someone who listened to Dead Can Dance in the 90s, and love the work that Lisa Gerrard does with Hans Zimmer in Gladiator. God, a lot of the Lisa Gerrard stuff was just like way like not working for me. A lot of these scenes, some of the more sort of operatic, almost like music video elements of just like silent Russell Crowe against, Lisa Gerrard being all operatic. I'm like, this is very late 90s. It's very over the top, and it feels incredibly out of place right now. I know that like getting Lisa Gerrard to work on your score was all the rage for a couple of years, and I guess they wanted in on that action, but yeah, it doesn't work. The score in general is pretty good, but there's elements of it where it just is like
distracting moments for sure.
It is, yeah.
I just wanted to say that I really admired the screenplay.
Yeah,
I thought there's just like a ton of stuff in there. Like a lot of the dialogue between Weigand and Bergman is just, like I said before, really excellent. But there's a lot of sincerity to it. I felt like that got that you wouldn't necessarily think would work with the kind of grittiness of a lot of the movie, but like I thought I found myself like catching a bunch of lines of dialogue and thought, oh, these are really good,
Yeah.
But I was actually going to ask, I had for Lindsay, just wanting to know, like, do you are you a fan of journalism movies? Are you interested in them, or is it like a doctor watching a medical show or something?
I actually do like journalism movies. I just rewatched All the President's Men the other day, and it's just so good. I mean, a lot of times the journalism subplots in movies that aren't about journalism are unwatchable in that kind of doctor watching medical show way, but I do like a good movie about journalism.
One I have not watched since it came out is Spotlight, and that's one I would like to see again.
That was a really great movie about just the physical like geography of Boston and how it captured just the spatial relationships in the terrain of the city. I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
Spotlight.
As someone, I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I'm a Boston guy, so there's a little bit of that appeal to me as well, along with like the town. Gone.
Would you care to pronounce the title of that movie correctly?
Which movie?
Spotlight.
Spotlight? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Spotlight?
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Spotlight Kid? Yeah, how's that? Pretty good? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah, The Insider is available on Hulu with a couple of ads, which are annoying, but otherwise, that's the best place to watch it right now. And if you've not seen The Insider, go see The Insider. Go watch it. It is as relevant today, unfortunately, as it ever was 25 years ago, 26 years ago. Let's wrap up, Julia.
Okay, Lindsay, we have two questions we like to ask all of our guests. Question number 1, what is your favorite film of 1999?
Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Which is coming up. We're doing that one real soon. So spoiler alert. That one's coming up.
Another A Man Must Have a Code.
Yes,
Definitely.
Yeah, you like Man Must Have a Code movies, I guess. What is it about Ghost Dog that you love?
I love I just remember how I felt when I watched it at the time, and it was just such a beautiful integration of kind of gritty African American urban movie and the Japanese samurai movie, that it blended them in such an artful way that was really, really impressive to me at that age. And I love the pigeons. the koans, about the sort of philosophical koans about how, if it's raining, you can try and dance between the raindrops, or you can just keep walking, you'll get equally wet either way. I think about that a lot.
Yeah
It's just a movie with a lot of heart that really spoke to me.
It's interesting, like, so we're obviously we're going to talk about it soon, but like one of the things that always stood out to me about that movie is everything that you're saying, the sort of like the Wu-Tang Clan element of it juxtaposed against the sort of like Japanese Zen elements of it, but also that like the director is Jim Jarmusch, who you like don't associate with that kind of movie.
Either of those things, really.
Right, either of those things at all. And then also like Forrest Whitaker is just like not the person that you would immediately think of in that role either, and like somehow miraculously it all works. And that's also, I think, part of what makes it such a sort of memorable movie, that it's almost like it just, none of it should work. It shouldn't be good, and yet somehow like all of those elements do make it work. So,
and yeah, that was really a fascinating part about it, is that there was this sort of culture of the streets, and it did a very, so the idea of the man must have a code vis-a-vis the streets versus a man must have a code vis-a-vis feudal Japan, and these things mesh surprisingly well together.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you insights into both of those worlds.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time. That's a good one. Let's see. I'm going to say All the President's Men.
All right. So why All the President's Men?
The Gordon Willis cinematography, performances, that it really is a very faithful rendition of sort of what newsroom life is like. It dramatizes it really effectively without sacrificing quote unquote accuracy or authenticity. And the subject matter, I'm fascinated by everything to do with Nixon and Watergate.
So so quick question then on that note, because this is something that we also sort of briefly mentioned when we briefly talked about All the President's Men, which is that it all seems so quaint now, right? And you just said that you recently rewatched it, right?
Yeah.
So like, how does that movie, I haven't watched it in years and years and years, and certainly not since the Trump world, but how does that movie feel in terms of like what it was implying prior to Trump versus like the reality we live in now?
It feels really sad in the sense that it is in fact true in this world at this point in history that revealing this scandal which is relatively small in the scale of what we see every day that we shrug off in terms of Trump's misbehavior, where he's getting billions of dollars from crypto, where he's being openly bribed by CBS with a frivolous lawsuit to make their merger go through, and on and on and on. All these things right out in public that we know about all the time, and it doesn't even register. And it's like, well, Nixon was involved with a burglary at the Democratic National Committee headquarters. And yeah, that's very wrong, but it's not something that would even rate today.
Yeah.
But and yet it ended his presidency, and it just makes you sort of feel wistful for the point where actually telling people about scandals changed people's minds.
Yeah. I can't imagine that I wouldn't just be like despondent after watching it.
It's poignant. It really is very poignant to watch right now, which I think part of is why I decided to go with that's my all-time favorite. It varies it varies by the day, but yeah, that poignance from this moment is part of the reason that it came to mind for me when you asked.
Well, something that's so interesting about that movie is that the actual takedown of Nixon is such a small part of the movie, right? It's just like the actual consequences just come when they're on their typewriters typing the headlines, and then like Nixon resigns is the final headline that they type. But it's like it's really almost not about Nixon in a certain way, as it is right. Like the investigation itself is the topic of the movie more than Nixon, and it makes it hold up in a way.
I mean, you do learn all the stuff through the investigation of how creep worked and how, their various bank accounts and everything. So you do learn a lot through the lens of the investigation as to how Nixon's machine was operating. Although there's one crazy thing at the very end, the big reveal with Mark Felt, where it's like he finally gets all the pieces of the puzzle from his top level FBI source from Deep Throat. And then Deep Throat's like, yeah, and also they control the CIA and kill people at will. And there's this whole enormous conspiracy that's spelled out in about 4 sentences before they go back to the Watergate stuff, and it's never followed up on.
I'd forgotten about that part.
Yeah, I had too, actually.
There's like this 3 sentences of QAnon level stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a prequel. It's a prequel to the QAnon story. Jesus Christ. All right. Well, both really, really good answers. Solid movie picks for sure. And All the President's Men and this movie obviously have a lot of shared DNA. So yeah, if you want like a depressing back-to-back double feature, listeners, to make you feel even worse about the state of politics and news media today, watch All the President's Men and The Insider on a rainy afternoon and cry yourself to sleep in your pillow. But don't do that because we should still have fun as best we can. Lindsay, if people would like to check out your work or like connect with you on the old internet, where would you direct people?
I am at Beyerstein, Beyerstein, on the major social media, and I write a regular column for alternate.org and the editorial board, which you can find at alternate.org and on the editorial board Substack, respectively.
Cool.
And I'm working on a book about conspiracy theories in American politics.
Oh, awesome. Do you know what the title is yet?
Yes, it's called Against the Light, A History of the Deep State from the Illuminati to QAnon.
Dude.
Awesome.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, that is definitely my jam, right up my alley. You can find us on Blue Sky. I'm at John Brooks. Julia's at Julia Sermons. The show is at 1999 the podcast. You can find this and other shows at cageclub.me, and we will be back in a couple of weeks with a new movie. Until then, Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us. Really a pleasure having you. A lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me.
And yeah, come back anytime, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks.
Yeah.